Hey guys, Tim from the Heresy group. Now I'm just going to get straight to it. Obviously I haven't put some content up in a while if you missed the live stream, purely because me and Richie don't feel that it's right to kind of force content down people's necks. We'd rather do something and deliver content that we're really passionate about. Obviously we've had some projects that have been massively delayed, events that we're putting on ourselves, new media shoots, different sorts of things with media, that's all gone to the wayside. So I think, you know, the straight flat explanation of why you're not putting stuff out and re-editing and recutting and remixing, we don't want to do it. We just want to deliver fresh content, and we want to do that when everyone can get out and enjoy the products that we're reviewing, or get and come and do some media stuff with us and all those sorts of things. So we just don't want to force things down people's necks. Also, I have removed my social media apps from my mobile phone, and that has obviously given me a big disconnect from the people that DM me, and it would come up as a notification, and I would be very active in responding to a lot of people. That is both on Facebook and on Instagram. So, you know, I don't want people feeling like we're ignoring them. I am trying to get to them. I'm just not doing it instantly. I'm going back and hitting back all of the responses in kind of batches. And the reason for that is because I'm working on some stuff, my personal life and my career, and that is very time consuming and really needs some dedicated time to it. And so I'm alleviating those notifications coming through to my phone. So it's just very important work stuff now that comes through to my phone while I'm working on this qualification. So that's the key things. If you're messaging me and I'm not getting back to you as quick as I do normally or frequently, it's because of that. I've also toned back on social media as well. So I'm only really following and absorbing content that is critical to us and the Heresy group. Now, admitting to that, at time of filming this video this morning, I went through maybe 30 messages while having a coffee, and I must probably admit that maybe 25-ish of these were resonating around the same thing. And a close friend of mine messaged me, and the kind of strap line for the message is Airsoft fucked, is what they said. And it's kind of this question that's continually come up, you know, oh, is 2021 fucked, you know, is this, and you know, there's lots of things that happen towards the tail end of 2020 that has thrown everything into a bit of a whirlwind. You know, I think some of the big companies closing up doors, you know, towards the last quarter of last year, and not being able to access the sites that they predominantly have had access to, and I know that's been a big problem for a few people. You know, rumours of companies closing and actually not closing, but just not having an events going forward. You know, and other smaller companies that provide these smaller, more boutique events that kind of promised a lot in 2020, and I can understand why it's hard to capitalise on delivering 2020 because of how shit it was in regards of COVID. But a lot of businesses in their wake promised a lot for 2020, and I think when you promise a lot and then don't deliver, even if you deliver a tiny thing, it kind of looks like a letdown. And so for us, looking back on it, I can see why, you know, the reflection of 2021 off of 2020 is probably quite negative and bleak for a lot of individuals. Now, I was very fortunate to get along to some Sterlings last year, and I've got to admit, you know, for me, without kind of replicating what we've covered already on the channel, the trees with Sterling is kind of a bit of a spiritual home. I obviously have so much admiration and respect for all the Sterling guys as well. They've kind of brought me through my airsoft journey, as it were, from my very early days of being in the deep end at the Valley, all the way through to now, and still learning, and they still provide an environment for people to really excel and push themselves over a weekend, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. So, you know, fair play to Sterling, and also managed to get to them last year, so I was happy. What does their calendar look like for 2021? Quite honestly, I have no idea. Haven't caught up with Matt or Ben or any of the guys in quite a while, and you know, I don't want to be out chasing and sort of snapping at the heels of those guys when I actually have no intention at the moment of getting out and playing, and even organising playing, or even thinking about playing. All of that space in my mind I've kind of erased out, and I'm sort of using it in other areas of my career progression. So I think because of that, everything around Airsoft has taken a backseat, and for me mentally, even talking about it now does get me excited, but at the same time I know subliminally that I've kind of parked it. So long introduction, but the question really facilitated around, what does it look like for 2021 for you and Richie? Is it fucked? Is the kind of strap line. And I think for me and Richie, it's not that the actual airsoft itself is fucked, but I think that the facilitation of going to do airsoft events is going to be very damaged. These businesses that run weekend to weekend, and I'm not going to throw names out there, but we know that there is people out there that have their 9 to 5, and then once a month they do a weekend event on their site. It's a good bit of money in their pocket. It allows a blowout for a lot of local players, and someone who owns that repertoire of land, if it isn't the individual themselves, gets a bit of a sweet backhander. Everyone's happy. I think when you go a long pattern without that income being there, 1-2 months, maybe 6 months, oh my God, this is quite severe. When you're about a year, I think you probably begin to reconfigure what those weekends look like for you, and you're trying to source that income probably from a different area, whether that's working overtime, whether that is taking up some weekend work, whether that is helping out friends or whatever, right? When you have that plugged and pulled away from you for such a long period of time, I would imagine that the mentality is, that extra £1,000 a month that, is a very relative income to a lot of people, it is gone and degraded so severely for such a long period of time that you start looking for something else. And so I know of guys that have run small games, weekend games here and there, that are now at the point of not considering doing it anymore because they've had to financially re-support themselves by doing other things over the weekend. A friend of mine's got a security job at an airport near me, and the money that he earns, the actual effort that he has to put in is quite reduced, and yet he still gets a really good pay. So I think there's that damage on the actual facilitation of the events. Now, I'm going to speak hypothetically here because I don't know for certain, but what I would imagine also is that access to the UK MOD sites is going to be significantly reduced. Now, I am not an educated person around this, and also people are going to go, oh, you haven't served, you know nothing, blah, 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 right? So I'll just do it hypothetically, and if you get me, you get me. If you don't, please leave a correction in the comments rather than tearing me to bits. The flights of individuals and the onboarding of individuals that are going to join the military have been suppressed. So they've been pushed back. I've got a friend of mine who's joining the Navy, and they have been pushed back about 6 months. As of last year, I know that there was a few flights out doing things and doing their onboardings and things like that. But I also know of a lot that have been suppressed, training that's been suppressed and put back. A few of my friends of mine that nearly said what they were doing then, but they're doing their training. They have also had their training and everything suppressed and put back. So what my thoughts are, how this implicates this year, is that those sites that are normally available to us or potentially available to us, the Stanters, the Longmoors, the Senny Bridges, all those types of things, the Cocoa Downs, I think we're going to have much less chance of getting them. That's my personal opinion, is that, that 52 weekends of the year where there are subjective ones that are available when it's outside, filming. I know they're used for filming. I know BBC use them a lot. They do, TACMED situations there for different people that are doing training. They do stuff for St John's Ambulance. All of those individual groups, kind of divvy up the weekends that are available. And sadly, Airsoft comes at the bottom of the pecking list, and right duly over people that are learning about medical care. And so I think that the availability of them sites will be reduced when and if we get back into full swing again. Also, the thought of the abundance of individuals on these sites. If you are doing a small TACMED scenario, I say small, say sub 30 people that need to be on site, in the wake of a pandemic, that scale of individuals is actually okay. When you look at what, for example, a Sterling would do, where you have 90 to 100 people per side, potentially, and then, 30, 40 staff members, maybe sub that. But, if you look at that scale of volume on a site like that, with the issues, understandably, the infection rates dropping, but if you just look at the pandemic in its totality, a lot of people in a small space. So I think that's another risk. Now, I personally have really enjoyed what Splatoon has offered, and Camo Raids facilitating games at Splatoon site. I've really enjoyed them. Getting out with these on, and you know, and getting out at night is my absolute passion. It's the one thing that really does hold me to Airsoft, and being able to drive for, you know, sub 2 hours and be there until, you know, 2-3 o'clock in the morning and get home in the same night for a relatively low cost and get lots and lots of action. For me, was a real game changer last year. I think I'd done about 6 or 8 events there in total, and got to say that I walked away from one pissed off, and that was purely because of the blue on blue. You guys have probably seen my rants about it, and really the kind of some of the poor ROE from some of the players that were there. But I think that was kicked in the bud pretty quick after that event, and you know, luckily the guys that facilitate the events there really hammered home to everyone how frustrating it can be when you are, you know, really driving forward and you're being in the front, you're being continually shot in the back. So outside of that, I think we were very lucky, and I'd love to see, you know, what Splatoon can do in the latter parts of this year. But the whole kind of, is it fucked up? I think what we do have is a severely distilled level of events, big events. Now there are some event people that run, you know, first and only and whatever, and we've had our issues with them and the guys at Anzio definitely, and would not go back there if life's, you know, depended upon it. But they are a big company and they've got lots of sites, and it would be good to see them, you know, facilitating some longer events. Obviously not run by the guys from Anzio, but I do hear on the grapevine that there is some good guys that run events well for first and only. So it'd be nice to see them do something. I don't know what the current status of Legion is, but I do wish Michael the best, and hope that those guys come out the other side of COVID with some action and some plans for, you know, latter 2021. Again, I'm not sure. My catch up with Matt hasn't happened, so as soon as I know about what Sterling's plans are for the year, when we see this easing of everything, that would be good. But I don't think it's fucked. My energy last year, when we went into this sort of lockdown period, was training, you know, being fitter, being stronger, honing my kit, fine-tuning things, on the phone to JCI, talking about things that he can do, on the phone to Tack Belts and getting him to make me custom shit. And, you know, like, I was really into refining and honing my skill and my equipment. Since probably September-ish, that just got put to bed. As soon as the weather got a little bit shitty, my actual thought, this is the first time I've had these out of the box since September, and I wanted to do that to sort of have them in front of me, to sort of ring my mind about what last year looked like for me, and this is to kind of get that airsoft side of my brain back going again. There is always the opportunity for people to train and for people to do things in their guard and weapons manipulation, all that sort of stuff, if you're that way inclined. Now, a lot of people have sent me the T.Rex Arms video. I've probably been sent by about 30 people. Richie got bombarded with it as well. And people have asked if I've watched this kind of T.Rex Arms' take on Airsoft and what I think of it. Airsoft being spoken about by Lucas specifically, that a lot of people look up to, and is, you know, renowned as being a phenomenal shooter, regardless of whether you don't like him because he didn't serve, or you don't like him because he's a skinny fucking gamer nerd. Whatever your negative connotation is towards Lucas, he has a very powerful platform. Regardless, you know, to the point, you know, all of the Call of Duty Modern Warfare animations and weapon swaps and all that detailing throughout the game and the mechanics was actually done by him and his team. You know, and they've used special forces operators for all of their games. You know, he is at that level where he is being called in to do drills and manoeuvres with severely talented teams. So I think there's a lot of weight that goes with what he's talking about. The issue that I do see with the video, my personal opinion is that he's talking about a very specific event that happens in the US. And if you look at that type of event and the people that it attracts, it's very different from the UK Milsim scene. You know, there are a lot of social celebrities, there are a lot of what we would call, skirmish airsofters that will go to that event for more of a social than an actual weekend of augmentation and getting on it. Now, like he said in the video, and a lot of the times he brought up how bad people's drills were. They weren't watching six, the communication was really bad. He was having to ferret between teams to communicate and all those sorts of things. Now, I do understand that happening at the likes of Legion and at the likes of some of the kind of probably more mixed events. But I think when you take into account the type of issues that he was isolating with that American Milsim series, you compare that caliber of individual to what you would get at Sterling, and you don't have that. You go to Sterling with comms, you go with a really, people kind of gravitate to that Sterling when they feel really confident in what they're doing. And what he actually had spoken about and raised was people that were uneducated and unconfident and also didn't have the right equipment. People that were out at night without even a torch, that were out at night without communication equipment, solo people, just wandering and bumbling around on their own. Really don't get that caliber of event. So I think when you take some of the things that he mentioned about Airsoft and the negativity to Airsoft, I think that's quite American focused. And you do get 500-600 people at this massive, multi-million pound training event where you've got vehicles and armor and all this other shit. They do go over with it, but I think some of the stuff doesn't translate. I do think it does raise the exposure, and then he's also becoming a bit of an advocate for the platform. I think the whole thing with Liku, and having him over from Japan and showing these split times and how someone who had never shot could translate from a gas blowback platform over to real steel. So I have seen the video. I hope that that gives some limelight. I totally agree with the fact that there is so many brands out there, airsoft wise, that don't do enough for the events, but at the same time, the amount of money that real steel firearms companies spend on, events. So, and even, I'll talk, specifically Vortex. Vortex sponsor hundreds of athletes, hundreds of them. They sponsor 3-gun events, Clay's events, they sponsor everything, but they actually don't involve themselves very often with Airsoft. A recent event, the International Sniper Challenge, thank you to all the guys. I was meant to be going out for that, but the whole team had arranged my travel, pick up absolutely everything, and obviously due to COVID I couldn't fly out. But speaking to them, they had sponsors literally throwing stuff at them for this International Sniper Comp. Speaking to a couple of the guys that were running and facilitating the entire event, literally guys were driving to them with vans worth of stuff, hoodies, hats, thermal wear, gloves, sandbags, literally tripods, spotting optics, everything. They were having stuff thrown at them because it was a real steel shooting event. And if they just took a 10% of that budget and started pushing some of that material into the airsoft scene, you would find people advocating for those brands over, especially accessory wise, over onto their airsoft weapons. Some people say it's overkill. I just like the lifetime warranty through Vortex. It's a really good point, but also even Magpul and some of the Magpul products, the fact that they have warranties on them and things like that. So things do get snapped and broken. You've spent 15 quid on a copy, or 20 quid or 25 quid on a real one, and you break it, or something breaks, or you strip the thread on a screw, then you can obviously get it replaced. So I think in those cases where there are tangible crossovers between the two, weapons, accessories, clothing, material items, bags, packs, rucksacks, pouches, all those sorts of things that do translate well between the two, you could really facilitate having just 10% of that overall shooter's budget over into the airsoft scene, and it would, have a massive impact. So a lot of people have sent me that Lucas video, and I think it's good. It raises the awareness of the sport. Lucas was talking about the fact that the guns don't have recoil and that they're not accurate and those sorts of things. And I think from a real steel shooter, that's definitely the case, that they don't have that same impact. But when you're talking about, as he was, CQB basics, most of us sub 15 meters are going to hit quite a small target. And all guns out the box could hit, a central mass target at 15 meters. So I think when he's talking about that deviation and like the 20 MOA aspect of a BB, I get it, but at the same time, I wouldn't say that BB guns are inaccurate. I think if you're looking at a 100-meter shot, yeah, I mean, of course. But if you're talking about CQB in the instance that he was, yeah, you're going to punch, you know, a thumbnail-sized hole with 223 or 556 or whatever. But at the same time, you're going to hit like a tennis ball size with an airsoft gun at that same 15-meter or sub, you know, CQB distances. So that I didn't quite agree with. Obviously, he was talking about recoil, and people were talking in there, gotta go GGB, gas blowback, or Tokyo Marui, or whatever, right? And people were throwing them aspects at him as well. He was using the G&G and just translated all of his stuff over. I think, you know, it was an interesting video. It's good to see him covering that content. You know, for us specifically, I know Richie sat and watched it as well. We're keen to sort of see what leads from that video. You know, will people start actioning upon what he's saying? But only time will tell, and that will be American-led more than likely before the European businesses start getting involved with airsoft. Obviously, I'm keen to hear your thoughts. If you've listened to me babble for this long, I do really appreciate it. This was a bit of a mind bump, just to get some of the thoughts out of my head and over to you guys. I will try and keep the videos fairly infrequent. I'm not going to be throwing anything massive out, but if you do have any interesting questions, or if I get the same question come up a lot, obviously please feel free to whack it in the comments below. Really keen to hear your thoughts. I mean, I am just one person. I've been quite isolated away from airsoft for a while, so probably don't have a finger on the pulse, but I'm keen to hear your thoughts. Please don't just dislike and fucking disappear into the ether. I'm happy for dislikes, but it's really good when someone gives a bit of an explanation of why they weren't happy, or why they didn't agree, or, you know, what their thoughts are on the context of the question. Me and Richie will try and get some content out. I'm not even going to promise when, but we are looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to hopefully getting out at some point this year. So thank you very much for watching. I'll get this video uploaded ASAP.